This sucks. This really, really sucks. Can very confidently say this is one of the worst implementations of an inventory system. It's barely a system, item management, and anything in any video game that I've ever played. I have personally written and implemented better systems than this. It is not hard. There is no excuse for it. All it does is add tedium and annoyance to the act of playing Diablo 4. While I agree with Rax that crowd control is the worst thing about fighting monsters, the actual worst thing I firmly believe in the game right now is this. The inventory system, the item management is atrocious. There's no excuse for it. The number one reason for this is aspects. Aspects are the main thing that you use to enable your build that goes onto your rares. Really, aspects are arguably the most important thing about your build, combined with certain build enabling uniques if your build needs that. And having the right aspects, especially with the right rolls on them, is the most important thing about the loot that you're picking up and what you're putting onto your items. Since a sorcerer has 60 of these, we see that there are 50 spaces per tab times 4 tabs. We have 200 total spaces for storing anything ever. Now we get a little bit more, we get 20 more with the extracted aspects, but these cost about 500,000 gold to extract. So generally you're not gonna be doing that. So in terms of raw storage, this is already embarrassing and awful. I totally understand why they did this. They mentioned it during the last campfire where they said inventory pressure. I understand what that means. Until just about an hour ago where I wanted to arrange this a little bit nicer for the video, I just had everything kind of dumped in here. I had no custom setup here or anything. I just dumped everything in my stash, assuming that I could kind of find it a little bit better later, but that never kind of came to fruition. Very easily spent multiple hours if I find an upgrade for my gear, looking for a better imprint to put onto my new item. What really spurred this on and why I'm extra annoyed right now is because I just got a glove upgrade. It was really, really exciting. These are basically perfect gloves. You know, they could be rolled a little bit better, but then I realized that I would have to look in my stash, and if I didn't have the right aspect that I probably had dropped, the conceded aspect is not that rare. I've definitely had a ton of them drop. Because I couldn't tell if I already had something, I would disenchant something because it was so annoying to see if I already had it. So if I get a new aspect that's good, like, oh, okay, I got a new conceded. So exciting. It's a 24 out of 25 roll. That's pretty good. I do think for the build that you're playing, you want to have probably 2. So you have a backup and then you want to have another if you find another gear upgrade. I want to find at least 2 conceded in my inventory before I decide to disenchant the one that I just picked up. But this is what it means, is if I'm in the flow of doing nightmare dungeons and I'm going through all that, I'm either going to have to go through the tedium of going back to my stash, mousing over every single item and seeing if any of these say the word conceded. That's actually the easiest way to do it, is you want to look at the name of the aspect and then mouse over every single thing and then just see if that first word in the upper left corner is the word conceded. So this is what you have to do. And depending if you can't read really fast, if you know, this font isn't exactly the most readable thing in the world, just going to be doing this. And yep, you know, maybe there's another slot that it goes in like, okay, cool. I got 1 conceded, a 23 roll. Nice. All right, let's just keep going. Keep going. And, you know, my inventory right now is about as organized as it gets. So we're going to go through these, like, because an amulet can have everything as well. We want to see if it's on the amulet. Nope. So I only have 1 conceded right now. So if I did get one, I would want a second one as a backup. Just deciding whether you want to keep this thing or not, because you don't want to take up too much inventory, it's going to take you, even in a very well-organized stash, at least 1 to 2 minutes. You can see that I organized my stash by slots. They come in weapon, they come in defense, they come in utility, they come in resource, and they come in mobility. So there are different restrictions based on where they go, and I try to organize these as best as possible. This has helped a ton. I know if I want something that's weapon only, I only have to go to this tab. But yeah, regardless, if you're going to hold a couple backups of multiple things, no matter what, it's going to take up at least about 2 full of your stash tabs. Probably closer to 3, to be perfectly honest. And this is after me cleaning things out and making it as organized as possible. And then the last up would be just 1 tab devoted to everything else that you can possibly have. So this is my sigils, and this is actually after I just disenchanted a bunch of sigils. I was overflowing with them to the point where I actually had a mule, which we'll get to a little bit later. I had a mule dedicated to holding onto sigils and elixirs. The counter argument is, you know, don't hoard so much. You need to get rid of things more quickly, be more efficient about salvaging things. But even that salvage step adds so much time to the act of playing the game. This really runs counterintuitive to the ARPG design philosophy and game flow, and it's way more influenced by the MMO pure time sink setup. For me, an ARPG is all about getting into the flow state of just kill monster, get loot, upgrade if you need to, you know, the crafting or whatever steps when you get an upgrade. And there should be some inventory pressure in terms of deciding whether you pick up an item. You shouldn't be able to pull everything out of every single dungeon that you run. And that way you have to make a little bit of interesting choices in terms of what you pull out, because the extra time teleporting away, using your portals, whatever, that does represent a bit of a design inflection point for the player. But after you've picked something up and then you've gone through and you've decided what you've sold, and then a potentially extra multiple minute step to take to decide whether it's even worth holding into your stash, or then logging into your mule and putting it onto a mule and all that, is just unacceptable. So this was my initial point. And then my initial fear with this is actually that they're going to sell us stash tabs. Now, Path of Exile, a game that I love, is known for selling stash tabs. That's their main pay-to-play step that you have to take to actually play the game. But it is a free-to-play game, and you actually get way better stash functionality right off the bat. And then for a total price of about $40 to $50, if you wait till the stash tabs are on sale, you get more than enough functional stash tabs to last you years. And a $70 game coming with less stash space than a free-to-play game that's been out for 10 years, that has way more stash functionality, which I'll show a little bit later. It's not just like stripped down and basic. It's aggressively anti-convenience and anti-player. I understand the pressure to sell you more tabs, but to give you so little functionality, like I can't even imagine how bad this is on console. Having a search functionality, that's the next big point here, is being able to search. If I just had a little box down here where I could type, CON, well, all right, well, I don't actually want to type here. If I could just type in a search box and just type in CON, see if I had conceded, especially a global search box that would then highlight if it had it anywhere, that would already solve like 90% of my current annoyance. I can only imagine that this is especially tedious on console. A nice thing about console implementation, especially in something like Path of Exile, it will do a fuzzy search. So if you type CON, it will then show you the things that will match, and you can kind of just go down and find the words that are matching and then zoom in on that and get autocomplete, which would make the console experience significantly more pleasant. I don't really buy the argument like, oh, this is just a console UI or this is a mobile UI. In fact, having fewer features, being this bare bones, stripped down, lacking of basic human decency in terms of the design, it's shameful and embarrassing. Like it just really is. There's no excuse for it. Not only is it inconvenient for PC players, it's aggressively anti-console and anti-mobile player, if this were a mobile interface. A counterpoint that you could say is, okay, don't hold on to as much stuff. Stop hoarding. You would think that Blizzard would want players to play longer. You'd want them to hold on to more stuff that allows you to respec into other builds, but I'm in a weird point now. I have a couple ideas for what I want to change for taking on Uber Lilith. I actually don't have the convenience of holding on to non-aspect based rares. I actually had other items this morning that I ended up selling as I was going through and clearing out. For example, I have these pair of gloves here that have rank of ice shards, but what if I wanted to go to Frozen Orb? What if I wanted to play a lightning build or anything like that? I would love to start holding on to and picking up rares that I could store for an alternate Sork build. Unfortunately, all of my potential stash tab space basically is just held up by, aspect storage at the moment. Yeah, maybe I could reserve one row to one alternate build or something like that. I mean, that's just crazy. One of the coolest things about an ARPG is farming up for a different build to switch to. You'll notice that I don't have basically any uniques at all, besides just a couple right here that I'm playing around with at the moment, because I made a mule just to hold on to the uniques for a Sork. And yeah, so I can't really even consider swapping them in and quickly testing with things, which would keep me playing the game longer, experimenting more, saving up for alternate builds. The limited space, the lack of any search functionality, those are the big two things. They could very, very easily double the space here. Look at how much space is up here for the different tabs. They're probably going to sell us stash tabs. Maybe they're going to do the Diablo 3 thing and you can earn one per season, but that doesn't even make sense. Why give us more room in future seasons? Why not just give it to us now? That's not an interesting thing to give the player, is the ability to actually be interested into speccing into other builds. You're just shooting yourself in your own foot at that point. And then obviously this gets significantly worse when you're holding onto sigils and your gems. Gems are actually, in the current implementation of the game, crazy enough, they're actually not that big of a deal. By the time you're level 70, maybe 80 at the most, craft like 15 to 20 royal gems, and I guarantee you're never going to need more. When I sell my old pieces of gear, I just sell them, and I just use the gems that I have in my stash. Now, it is annoying to accidentally pick up gems, but just throw them on the ground immediately. I agree that gems taking up space is weird. It's like it doesn't add anything meaningful to the game, but I don't think it's actually a big deal. Alternate ways to sort would be really good. So this sort button is really nice. However, it doesn't really do that much. It sorts first by eye level and then by item type. Unfortunately, that also doesn't really take into account uniques. You'll see if I sort with my unique in here, which we'll get into a big problem that I have in a second. In fact, if I put these pants in here that are higher eye level, you'll see that. You'll see that the highest eye level goes here, and then it'll go the second eye level. It doesn't differentiate between item types, so you can very easily lose your uniques when you are sorting it all around. That was really hard to say. So that's really annoying. So being able to sort by item type or even alphabetical, something like that, alphabetical based on the aspect, that could be kind of interesting. And then the other big thing is look really closely. Can you tell me which one of these pants is the unique one and which one is the legendary one? Without zooming in really, really closely, I bet you can't. This has actually led me to accidentally selling my rarest, most prized item that I've ever had drop. This build really, really likes a unique called the Raiment of the Infinite. I had it in my inventory and it looked exactly like another body armor that was right next to it. I was going a little too quickly. I marked it as junk because it wasn't clear what it was. It did not have unique art or anything like that. And I accidentally sold it and it was not in the buyback. I didn't even notice for a couple hours. Now, there is a slight difference between the color. There's a slight difference between the border. You'll see that uniques have this a little bit more ornamental border. You see that legendaries have a little bit different border than uniques. The color is very, very close. This one's just a little desaturated, a little more pink. The fact that these are not differentiated very well is just atrocious and embarrassing. The fact that legendaries look more interesting when they drop on the ground. Half the time, I don't even notice uniques. The sound isn't very interesting. They look closer to just the color white than some sort of special unique color. Honestly, poor signaling from the design of that. Unique should be green like a set item. You know, we probably have set items coming later anyway, but unique should be very unique looking. It should be very clear that something of a higher rarity that is very special dropped. There are plenty of other colors on the spectrum that they didn't use, and they just decided to do like this desaturated pink color. Weird and bad. It's just weird and bad. There's just no excuse for doing something like that. If they don't want to solve that problem, I would love to manually be able to lock my items. If an item is part of my core build, just let me put a little lock icon on all of these, make them unsellable, unsalvageable, so that I can't accidentally mess that up. I am absolutely terrified of ever selling another item that is part of my build, to the point now where if I'm going to wear something different, instead of leaving it in my inventory where it's very risky of accidentally selling it, I actually manually put it in this lower right corner in my stash to just not be able to accidentally sell something that I care about. So much of this could be fixed by just adding more stash space, not even better searching, any searching. Path of Exile, for reference, has a full regular expression viable search where you can type in very complex expressions to find exactly what you're looking for, exactly what's in what mod, the roles that you're looking for within number ranges and everything. Not asking for that. We don't need that much complexity in this game. Just being able to type in the name of an aspect that you're looking for would go such a long way. And then the 4 stash tabs, I get it. It's probably something they're planning on expanding. I really hope that they don't add them as buyable things. The game does kind of get into a little bit of a pay-to-win situation for a game that costs $70, for a game that has a battle pass coming, all that type of stuff. Adding in actual pay-to-win functionality. I know it's minor. It's not like huge pay-to-win like Diablo Immortal, but that is crossing a little bit of a line that I think is very inappropriate for a game that has the price tag that it had, with a cash shop for MTX, all of this stuff. Like, they're hitting all of the bases. We'll probably get loot boxes in a season or two. That's probably all coming. If they add actual in-game functionality that then changes based on microtransactions, unfortunately, that crosses a line that just feels, in a game that already has this monetization, for me, that crosses a line that just, yeah, it sucks. The game's fun. I'm really loving it, but it's just a shame to be scared that that's going to happen. Now, if they just say, hey, sorry, we gave you 4 stash tabs. That was just us testing during the preseason. Here's 8 stash tabs. Here's some simple searching. That would go such a long way. I really think that the reason why we haven't heard more about how bad this is people don't know how good it is in other games. And I'm going to just spend 1 minute to quickly show you how good it can be in other games and why it's just unacceptable, inappropriate for it to be like this in such a well-polished, nicely made game. I actually just want to show you guys Last Epoch here as an example. I think Path of Exile system is really, really good, but I think this is probably closer to what I would like to see in Diablo 4 anyway. So you can see here that we can very easily set our colors. We can name our tabs. We can have as many tabs as we want, actually. I actually don't know if there's a limit in here. We can just click plus and we can just keep adding more if we want to. We can set the name, the title, all that. We can delete it. We can then put them into our own little organizational stuff here. We can name their tabs and everything. And then the big thing is the global search. Now, Path of Exile has a local search to just the tab that you're looking at, but I really like the global search here in Last Epoch, and I think Path of Exile needs it too. So this is the best in slot. This game is a beautiful game. Whatever you think about the gameplay in Last Epoch, I do have to say that the UI, UX, the inventory management, the crafting is best in class, really. Definitely check this game out if you guys haven't seen it yet. Not going to get into anything crazy, right? But if I want something that has the word storm in it, right? The cool thing here is I can type the word storm. It'll highlight all of the tabs that it actually has something that has the word storm in it, to the point where it actually highlights, like, this is the flavor text, and you see it says the fabled god of sea and storms. It actually searches everything across all of the items. That's it. Just a very beautiful, easy to customize, free stash. The stash is 100% free. It costs absolutely nothing to add more stash tabs. They have their own little subcategories and all that. Obviously, they don't want you to go absolutely crazy in Diablo 4, but this game is not super complicated. This game is not Path of Exile. It's a relatively straightforward game. The end game's not really any more complex than D4. This is all I'm asking for, man. You know, just let me organize my tabs a little bit nicer. Let me type in a name. This is literally a small indie game that is putting Blizzard to shame in terms of like the UI design, and the UI in this game I think is absolutely gorgeous. And then the actual user experience, the UX, of how to interact with it, just the flexibility, the customization. There's really no excuse for a game as overall polished and beautiful and fun as Diablo 4 to have a stash and inventory management system that is just horrifically tedious, lacking baseline features that have been in other similar games for over a decade at this point. And that for me is easily the biggest problem in Diablo 4. It is what causes me the most strife, which makes me the least happy about playing the game. I am very happy to do my nightmare dungeons, pick up loot, decide what I, have that inventory pressure and decide what to pick up and what to sell and what to salvage. And like that decision making is fine. But the actual systems of interacting with what we can hold on to, finding what I already have. I don't even know where stuff is right now without having like a spreadsheet to know exactly where it is or what I have. At the very least, like manually putting things in the exact right tab to make sure that, okay, I know that all of my weapons are in this tab. I could rant and rave about this forever, but you guys get the point. Blizzard, fix this. Come on. It's inexcusable. I love your game, but that's just straight up amateur hour. All right, thanks for watching. Thank you for subscribing and hanging out and everything, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.